Wednesday, July 27th, 2022. I'm Chloe, and the title of today's episode is So What Do I Call You Now? Three quick notes at the top. Excuse me. For one, you don't know how many times I almost say in the title of today's message for people who grew up in church. That's what like a pastor would say. I've never been to like a normal like Catholic mass or like Anglican or Lutheran or anything like that, but like in like a non-denominational, like a Baptist church or something like that, they'd be like, and the title of today's message is. So when I say in the title of today's episode, there are a lot of times that it almost comes out like that instead. That ingrained upbringing. What did I say? 3 notes. Second note, forgive me now if I seem subdued. I used to have chronic migraines. I had a procedure done with my long-time body piercer in North Carolina last fall that has almost completely eradicated them. It's miraculous. And so nowadays the only ones I get are weather related, like when the air pressure changes because the storm is coming. And that is what is happening to me right now. So I woke up with a headache, which is fun. I'm still here. I love doing this. I'm stoked to be with you guys. I'm just not like on like 11 octane wise. I'm at like 4.5. And you know what? I already forgot what the third thing was. Maybe it'll come back. Okay. So what do I call you now? I even wrote this in my notes when I was preparing that I've been feeling a tad emotionally spent lately because of some not related to the show things that I'm going through. And so I wanted to do an episode that was completely devoid of emotion and just sort of like, maybe like useful and kind of fun, maybe kind of interesting. And so that's where we are. I have a lot of devices. I'm actually just like reaching for another one because I don't know. I love tech, like media and technology production, and when you enjoy those things or you use them for work or for hobbies or both, you end up collecting a lot of things, like people who do music or home recording or things like that. And so I have a lot of tech and audio and video related equipment already. And then everyone has devices like phones and tablets and iPads and actually even to make it worse, not worse, it's actually totally cool. Hold on, I'm missing my light. Whoa. Sorry, YouTube people. I just turned on my additional light because I forgot it. Blame the migraine. I started, and it's actually been really thrilling, a vintage electronics collection. I collected like my first cell phone, like a copy of it, not the original one, because who knows where that thing went. But I found a copy of it on eBay. My first smartphone. A woman my mother used to work with gave me an old word processor. Yo, maybe one day I'll make a little video of like all the cool vintage electronics I have and just like put that up on YouTube separately because it's a little bit interesting. So, but adding to that are starting to be like, I hate to call it like an iPhone graveyard, but am I the only person that has one? Like, I'm holding one in my hand. I'm using one to film this. I have an iPad because my setup for this show is very mobile and I did it like that on purpose. I could run this off of the 3 computers that I have, but I actually do it almost entirely on mobile devices so that when I travel, I can still perform essentially the same functions. I want to make sure I could do it here and anywhere. So I'm broadcasting off one iPad. I'm doing notes off the other one. I'm filming with the phone. I'm recording back up with another phone. Yeah, so what I found was an article that tells you a bunch of interesting ways that you can use your old phones and tablets. So like, even though they're not fulfilling their primary or original purpose anymore, it doesn't mean that you can't use them. And I also sometimes just buy like low-cost electronics to see how they compare to the higher cost ones. So like I have a spin bike, which has been very useful during the pandemic. And because I purchased one that costs a reasonable amount of money and not one from a brand name that costs like $3,000, it didn't have a screen on it. So I just purchased like a low-cost Android tablet and then like jerry rigged it to the bike so that I can use that as the screen for the bike. You see what I'm saying? I do kind of stuff like that all the time, but it made me think like, are other people using their devices like this, or do you just like toss it in a drawer? And you might just be like tossing it in a drawer because you don't know what else it can do once it stops being your main phone. Like you get a new phone and you're like, hey, this is my new phone. And then you have this other one and you're like, I spent $800 on this. I can't throw it out. Well, what am I supposed to do? Maybe you traded it in. I've done that before. But you can also just like keep it and make it do something else for you. So I found a list. I think what I'm going to end up doing is posting the article in the description because it has like 11 different things. I'm not just gonna like sit here and read them all to you, but I'm gonna pull a couple of ones that either I already use or that I thought were like also interesting. So the first one they had, which I actually really kind of like, because I don't know about you guys, but now that we just live like a tad more virtually than we did before the pandemic started, I have regular video calls, like more than I did before we went through this. And I would assume that the same goes for most other adults. And so they said like you could take an older tablet or even an older phone and make a dedicated video call station. Like you could, let's say like the webcam on your laptop or your desktop is trash. You could hook your phone up as a webcam to a computer, but I don't know that it's necessary because it's kind of cumbersome. Like I was looking through the instructions and it makes sense, but it's also like, I could also just sit this on my desk and turn it on and it would do basically the same thing. So you could just like leave it set up and then keep your primary device doing whatever it does for you and use the older one as dedicated, because the cameras on most of these things, even when they're 3 or 4 years old, are still pretty good. And like you're having the weekly family chat, like how clear do you need to be for your Aunt Margaret or like that guy from The Office? Like it, do people need to see you in 1080 in like 2022 1080 or in 4K for like a virtual happy hour? Like you can use the older phone and it's okay. People know what you look like. Ooh, I really like this one. I've been borrowing my sister's car and I bought her a dash cam for it. If you don't have a dash cam and you drive regularly, get one. Or do this. You can repurpose one of your old phones. I wouldn't do this with a tablet or an iPad because it would obscure part of your windshield to have something that large sitting up there. But you could totally get away with putting an old phone up as a dash cam. And there's apps that you can use that will like facilitate that. Go look in the article, it'll be in there. I also like this one. And I'm contemplating doing this one, but you could set it up, I don't know, in addition to a bunch of devices, I also have a bunch of like Bluetooth and regular speakers in here, and you could attach an old device to its own speaker, and then just, instead of going like, oh, let me turn on my laptop and listen to music, or let me hook my phone up to the Bluetooth speaker that's in the kitchen or whatever, you could just have it dedicated. You just come in, turn it on, and go without having to switch things around. Oh, here's one that I already use, and I talked about this on the Travel Essentials episode. Using an older phone as a media player, like a dedicated media player. And I was kind of joking with myself when I did this, but it's actually been way more helpful than I thought it was going to be. Which is, I would hold up my primary phone, but I'm using it to film. Like when I'm traveling, that's in my hand with like my boarding pass, or like I'm answering last minute texts before the plane takes off or something like that. I'm using it to call an Uber, and I need it for like real life things, and I need it to maintain its battery for like important things. But then you're like, the flight takes off and you're just chilling, and you're like, okay, well, what do I want to do now? Then I pull out the other one. I'm gonna lift it up. It's recording, but I'm just like, like there it is. That's when I pull out that one. It has a larger screen, because I can't carry something around like that in my hand. My hands are not that big, so I can't use it as my primary phone, but it works great as a media player. I download playlists onto it, movies, TV, books, articles. And the other thing that I use this one for, which is the reason I bought it, is it's a Google Pixel, and they have a really nice voice recording platform that transcribes notes for you. That's the original reason I purchased it. And then I just started adding media to it, and it's made my life so much easier when I travel, because once the flight takes off, I turn off my primary phone and I put it away. And then when I get to the destination, it's ready to go. And all the while, I can just like run down the battery on the other phone willy-nilly. It doesn't even have a SIM card in it, because once I get to where I'm going, I'm not screwing around watching TV anyway. I can just turn it off and put it away. So I like having those two functions separate. It might be too much for some people to carry around multiple phones, but it's not for me. I like the compartmentalization of it. Let me give you like two more. A really cute idea for one that I used. I keep like another just like random mini tab that I bought for fun on Amazon for like $50 once, as a photo frame. You can buy a photo frame, but one, they're like $100, not like 50. And two, like, you have to go through so many, like, you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get all the stuff set up, like putting the files onto whatever, transferring them on a flash drive. Who knows where a flash drive is in their house right now? I don't. You transfer everything over Wi-Fi for the most part, or bring it out of the cloud. And I'm not hooking up some random photo frame to my cloud, but I could pull up a little tab. If it's an iPad or just an Android, you've got Photos, either Photos app, and I set it up on a little, this is what happens when my head hurts. What is that thing called? Where it scrolls through the pictures? You know what I'm trying to say. That's also an ADHD thing, where like you have a word that you're trying to think of, but it won't come to you. You know what I'm talking about, where it just like goes through the pictures by itself. You're saying it to yourself now, so you don't even need me to remember it, but you know what I'm saying. I just set it up on that thing and let it scroll through pictures. Like, I made this whole big list of photos that I find really relaxing, and so sometimes I'm sitting here working, I'll just let it like go through them, and I'll look up and it's on a different one, and it's cool. And last one, which I've been using this one for a while, is actually the purpose that introduced me to reusing old phones, is a home security camera. I lived in an apartment, and I had this sense once that my landlord had come into my apartment without alerting me. They're supposed to give you 24 hours notice in the US. I don't know what it's like in other places, but even though it's their property, they're not supposed to enter it without your permission. And I just came in one day and like something had been moved. It's weird. Not like stolen. It's their house. I get it, but like, give a girl a heads up. So I was like, I would love to know like what's going on here during the day. So I used I started using one of my old phones as a security camera, and it's dead easy to set up. The app that I use is called Alfred Camera, and you download it on the old phone, you download it on your main phone. You can use literally any device, and they don't have to be in the same like universe. It doesn't have to be all Apple or all Android. I've mixed them more than once. And then you could just surveil anywhere. And like not permanently, you could just set it up for a few minutes. But I leave one running all the time in my apartment now, which is nice. I'd be like, it points at my front door, and if anyone goes past the door or opens the door, it sends me an alert. So think about that. I've also read people using them as a baby monitor, like a video monitor. Or like you're doing something in the room, you want to keep an eye on the kids playing, but still give them like the autonomy to work on independent play, which is a really important skill for kids to develop, like to be able to do things on their own without you standing right above them, but you also need to know what they're doing. Yeah, you could set up an old phone in the room and just have it pointing wherever. You can hear and you can see. You can even talk back and they can talk to you. It's cool. So it's like a little video walkie-talkie. So that's just some like ideas. And like I said, as soon as I get off, I'll put it in the description too, so you can read them and download any of the apps you need if you're going to try any of this stuff out. It's cool. Because like for years, it's bothered me that, man, we spend all this money on these devices, and then a couple of years later, it just ends up sitting. And so it's been important to me to start finding these other functions. And once I started finding these other functions, I started finding out there's a lot of cool other functions for these old devices. And if you don't feel tech savvy enough to do all that, there are also things you can do with them, like recycling them, giving them back to the company you bought them from for like trade-in value for your next device, or like donating them for people who are unhoused or for the military. So don't just let it sit in a drawer. Get it out and do something with it. And once you start playing around with the idea that it could do something more than what it started as, you might even think of some more. For poetry time, we have a poem by John Masefield, and it's called An Epilogue. I have seen flowers come in stony places, and kind things done by men with ugly faces, and the gold cup won by the worst horse at the races. So I trust, too. I like guessing whether you guys can figure out why I pick certain poems before I tell you. I picked that one because it speaks to the fact that sometimes things work out in unexpected ways, which is kind of what we're talking about with these electronics. And it might seem frivolous, but it's not. The point is not just to go, let me reuse my old iPhone 8 or whatever. It's to shift your mindset away from making something disposable as soon as its obvious use has been compromised. And you can do that with anything. I find myself not just with old phones and tablets, but with lots of things. Go back and listen to the I Make Lamps Out of Packing Materials episode. But things can be mended and repurposed and given new life instead of just discarded. Because once you start doing that with things, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but sometimes that leaks into the way that you treat people too. So don't give up on your stuff if there's something else that it could do for you. And there might be something else that it could do for you. So I hope that was helpful.